Hey guys, welcome back to Anti-Hedge. We're going to be discussing some interesting topics today, which will be including our previous cycles, altcoin picks, as well as some new ones that we have in mind. And we wanted to kind of just briefly go over some of the projects because we see in the comments that you guys are still very interested in those projects, and so are we, because lo and behold, we're still involved with them to some degree. Now, one thing I do want to mention though is it's not financial advice. Everything here is strictly for news, research, and entertainment purposes. So with that in mind, you should be able to enjoy the content of this video. Moving on to our first coin that we're going to be talking about. And also before we move on to that, I just want to mention we dropped our crypto lecture. So this is a video that we did a few years ago that covered all the ins and outs of Bitcoin. And I just wanted to kind of mention that briefly, that you guys should definitely check it out, because this is the perfect video to be a beginner to intermediate to mastery level understanding of Bitcoin. Now move to the altcoin picks. So the first one here is going to be Hbar. Now, what's so interesting about Hbar? I'm going to start with the partnerships. The partnerships involved with Hbar are pretty big. They got a lot of tech giants involved with them and a lot of old school heavy hitters, which would include in this Hedera council, we got Boeing, Chainlink, Dell, Google, IBM, LG, Standard Bank. We got Ubisoft as well. So as you can see, they've got an incredible list of partnerships, and there's a lot of room for it to become something big. And the other thing too that I wanted to mention is you'll notice here Hbar times Nvidia, right? Now this is something that's been coming out and a lot of people are posting it as a fact, but I'd like to just stick to rumor for a little bit longer before we say it's fact. Now, if it is a partnership that actually happened, it's massive, but the real idea of how this partnership came to be is it's not technically a direct partnership, it's a partnership of association from my understanding, meaning that Equity Labs is using Hedera's blockchain to create basically the brain and the rails and infrastructure for AI, for their AI. And it just so happens that Equity Labs is working with Intel and Nvidia. So they kind of anchored themselves into Hbar for the time being, meaning that it could be a partnership in the future, but it's not an official partnership right now. So don't want to fudge you guys, but it's definitely something that you need to consider when you're looking at Hbar. And that is still big news. It's not a bad thing. This is something last year in December. And the other thing too is that when you look at how they want to do it, Equity Labs is also using Palantir, which was a stock that blew up and people were super heavy duty on for a while. So you got Palantir, potentially Nvidia, Intel, and all these companies that are all circled around Hbar to some degree. So that's not a bad thing. That's actually very bullish, but it's just not officially confirmed. But the other thing that I'm really bullish on is the Canary Capital filing for an Hbar ETF. Now this is bullish because if Hbar manages to succeed in securing one of the first ETFs for altcoins other than Ethereum, because we're not going to count that, then that could mean that there's a lot of potential inflows coming for Hbar, as well as institutional interest and adoption. And usually what ends up happening is, especially for this crypto cycle, is we're having a tough time with altcoins. Bitcoin's been ripping, but altcoins have been stagnating. And the reason being is because we're actually seeing the proper price discovery of these assets, meaning that Bitcoin has to inflate beyond these other altcoins because it's becoming a global currency. Every country is getting involved with Bitcoin, but altcoins are pretty much niche to their specific applications and use cases. Now, just to say, I think that most altcoins that are going to get the most exponential growth and biggest adoption are going to be ones with ETFs. So I think ETFs are going to be the driving factors of altcoins this season. Anything that will get an ETF will do significantly better than the ones that don't. And the ones that don't could still see a lot of growth in the terms of a rising tides lift all boats. That's the proper expression. So that's something we're still very bullish on. Now we're going to shift to another one that's been very much on our radar for a long time, Luxo. Good news, bad news. Bad news, you guys obviously have seen it. Luxo's price has dropped to basically RICO levels, and that's pretty bearish. It's not good. It's not a good sign. The reason that it's so bearish, the reason what really happened from my understanding, having looked at, let's say, all the news that has come out, is that Luxo didn't hype itself up and build during that time where it had all that hype. And then when the bear market hit, instead of trying to remain relevant, he focused on building silently, which wasn't necessarily the best move, but it might be the right move. I can't really tell you, but it definitely hurt the project. And to add to the bad news, he had a separation with his wife, Marjorie, and she was like basically the main person building the partnerships in the fashion and luxury brand space. And from my understanding, I don't think their relationship ended too well, because when she separated, she made it clear to dump all the Luxo coins onto the market, her share, which then completely crippled the price and forced it all the way down. So the way I see it is, she probably did that as a one last like fuck you in their divorce, and she walked off with Luxo at its highest price in the recent, let's say, few years that it happened, right? So that really crippled the project. It really hurt it, because then once the price drops, it doesn't allow a lot of building to happen, because the price is so low that the founder has to dilute himself to make it possible to build, because people don't build for free necessarily, right? But that doesn't mean that Luxo is dead. I do want to mention that it has been building. It never died. So we still have to look at one of these interesting things over here. So as you can see, X Luxo, by the way, just to settle that up with Marjorie Hernandez there. This could breathe some life into it. So we got Coinbase Germany's former CEO joining as a COO in Luxo, right? Or hold on, let me find the exact thing. There you go. So you see, it's joining Luxo, and that's not necessarily bad news. That could actually be good news, because I think what Luxo needs is someone who's steady at the helm to help navigate a turbulent market like this. And hopefully this could breathe some life into the project, because they are working on something called universal everything, universal profiles, and I do genuinely think that narrative is going to be big. I'm not dismissing it. I think that as we head into Web3 infrastructures that actually, are sustainable, what's going to happen is we're going to see more microeconomies form within the Web3 space. We're just very early. And I think that the issue with Luxo is the idea of it in its essence is still too early for what Web3 is right now. And I think that's kind of the biggest pitfall with Luxo. Good technology, good use case, too early. Now, I put this on a riskier aspect compared to what I would have ranked it before, but I still think that it has room to grow. Like I said, rising tides lift all boats, and I still see this project going to at least $10 to $15 at the current price. But I'd adjust my previous statements' potential price targets. And I guess the last thing that I want to mention about Luxo before we move forward to our next altcoin would be that in the future, I genuinely think that universal profiles and things along those lines are going to be used to access the internet. Like, I don't see the internet being something that is going to be fully open the way it is now. I think Web 2 internet, that we understand it, will remain the same. But then when Web 3 internet becomes developed, what's going to happen is you're going to need universal profiling or digital IDs to access the Web 3 internet. So enterprises and things that are going to be used in, let's say, a lot of commerce are going to need a digital profile. So that way AI and all these different things aren't just running rampant. Because right now we have a lot of bots, we have a lot of AI in the networks. Like, it's becoming a fucking mess in Web 2. So I think Web 3 will basically become the separation of you needing a passport to access the internet. And if that's the case, a little bit dystopian, I'm not going to lie, but the reality is universal profiles are probably going to be the technology that's used for that to some degree. Luxo or not, it's going to happen probably. Moving to the next one here, we'll talk about VRA. Now, VRA had some tough times recently, We had it dropping from, let's say, all those like higher highs. Now we're going to like lower lows. Now, I still believe in this project. I still hold the project. And the reason I believe in it is mostly because they're still building. So if you go on like Verasity on its main point in X as well as like its website, you notice they're still hitting their road marks. You see here they're sponsoring big Web3 events. They're getting partnerships, they're getting listings, they're getting a lot of shit done. But the thing is that it's less, let's say, flashy or loved because they aren't big exchanges, they're not big partnerships, but they are securing partnerships, which means that the team is still active. And that's kind of one of the things that gives me hope for the project. But the issue is that it's having a circulating supply issue, meaning that because they created POV tokens, which are supposed to be data tokens that are transferred to give basically information about viewers, and that's being used to prevent ad fraud. So the issue is that as the network is growing in terms of use case, meaning people are using it, so does the expansion of the POV tokens. And the POV tokens aren't technically tradable for money. They're not supposed to be, as per the team's statement. But the issue is because they're on the same contract as the Verasity tokens, it ends up looking like the supply is actually 90 billion as opposed to 9 billion. And that becomes an issue because that FUDs people out because they're like 90 billion tokens. That's insane. We're never going to hit a $90 billion market cap. But realistically speaking, I think that what people need to get as an expectation in their head is that I don't necessarily believe Veracity is going to go to $1. There's going to be some tokens that could go up exponentially, but they're not going to go to $1. And I think that the problem is that people look at psychological markers like that as the price point to look at. For me, the way I see it is if you buy Veracity, you're buying at these low prices where it's almost like a fifth of a penny, like 0.0017, right? For example, or 0.2, or whatever you're buying at. And you'd probably want to get rid of it at like half a penny to a penny mark. That's my honest opinion. Like for me, the way I see it is because it's going to be used as something that is incentivizing people to not use bots for advertisement. It's not meant to be a dollar coin. But if it goes to a penny or 2 cents or 5 cents or whatever it hits, it's like that's your target range. And if you look at it, even if it just goes to like let's say it just goes to 1 penny, from the current price, that's still 5x, which is very good. And if it goes to like 2 cents or previous all-time high, that's a big jump forward, especially if it garners market cap or gets Binance listings and stuff like that. So big losses, a lot of FUD, but I still believe in the project and I'm still holding and I still buy at these prices. So that's my wrap up for Veracity token. Moving to the next one. This one's one that I'm still very bullish on, Polytrade. Why am I so bullish on Polytrade? Well, over the time that we were on a hiatus, they did get some partnerships, and one of them is MasterCard. So MasterCard is building with Polytrade to create a real world asset marketplace. And I think real world assets are going to be a narrative that leads the crypto space because we are going to be tokenizing everything soon. It's going to create a new boom in the economy because we're going to tokenize everything and we're going to get an actual representation on a blockchain of what everything is and what it's worth. So I think that that's very important. But what they're doing is trade finance, which is basically the ability for small and medium enterprises, SMEs, to get funding, which is very difficult with banks. So what this does is it allows a marketplace for people to basically post their SME loan, and then people pay into it and loan to those people for interest. So it ends up like an open marketplace, a Web3 marketplace where people they could do crowd loans, angel investing, and receive money for it back, basically. So I do think that there is potential there, and they are with Chainlink as well. And there was another project that's attached to it that, this is a bonus for you guys, a bonus project for the top 10 cryptos that I'm watching. It's Credifi. So this very small project, very risky. Don't throw all your money into this project, but they partnered with Polytrade, And what they're doing is decentralized Web3 credit. So Polytrade allows you to get loans, and this allows you to access credit, which is slightly different. So credit would be like having a credit card and having loans for, let's say, consumer things, whereas trade finance is when you're doing it for business more, right? So one of the interesting things that I noticed with Creditify is they have a partnership with XDC, Sinfin, XRP, and Polytrade. Now, those aren't necessarily the biggest partnerships, but they're not small ones. And if they do build with Polytrade hand in hand, they could piggyback off of each other, especially if they're being attached to bigger projects. So it's only a matter of time before market flows into it to some degree. Now, the market cap of this coin's like 20 or 30 million, which is nothing, very small. Very risky too, by the way. I'm just letting you know it's very risky. But if it ever gets to a point where it even goes to like 200 or 300 million dollar market cap, which is quite doable in this current market, then there's a good chance that you'll do a 5 or 10x on it. So keep that in mind. Obviously, the other thing too that they're doing is because they're involved with real world assets and loans, they also have a partnership with Nilos to do virtual IBANs, so international business numbers, which allows businesses to operate and receive credit on a bureau level, like where there's a bureau that delegates these numbers and allows people to access it with these IBAN numbers. So that's a little utility, a little bonus that I wanted to add to you. And we'll move on to our next one, which is Rndr. I don't think we've ever talked about Rndr on the channel, but I figured I wanted to mention it into my top 10 list. And the reason being is that they partnered with Apple a long time ago. And the reality is Apple is still a top 10 company. So the reality is that if Rndr token is rendering all the creatives, helping them render their videos and all this content, then that's a big thing. Because having uploaded videos for this channel and for my Fist Fight Club channel, I know how long it takes to render a video and export it and send it. It takes time, and it takes a lot of hardware capacity for your computer. Now, if you have a product like Rndr, where you're doing this, let's say on not just on a consumer level, but on a corporate level, where you're having to render and do a lot of projects or make movies or CGI, the reality is having something like this, a decentralized database to render your projects and to help you create content, could not just exponentially increase how fast it is, but it could expedite the workload, allowing it to be more efficient as a whole. This project is still very new and early in terms of how it's developing, but just that partnership alone with their current, let's say, ethos of what they're trying to achieve is worth considering as an investment. All-time high was roughly about, I think, $12 to $14, and it's sitting at about $4 or $5 right now. So just if you look at it from an all-time high perspective, it's very likely to just hit its all-time high, which is still a 3x. But obviously that is going to be dependent on altcoin season and when Bitcoin dominance starts to fall. Next one we're going to talk about is ONDO. ONDO is going to be massive. It's inevitable. It's the largest RWA play in the space right now. And what's crazy is that Polytrade was a first mover, and ONDO has completely swallowed the RWA marketplace. Oh, completely. It's the first mover. Well, not the first mover. It is the fastest mover. And the reason being is that it's partnered with BlackRock. It's partnered with JP Morgan. It's partnered with a lot of big financial giants. And they're not just tackling like small little loans for companies. Like, we're talking about governmental treasury bonds. And not just governmental treasury bonds, but like everything within that scope. So let's say your company needs to raise debt and create stocks, which are just bonds at the end of the day. They're just convertible bonds. And what ends up happening is that they're going to be tokenizing stocks and bonds. So it's a government needs to take a loan, it's on a blockchain. A company needs to take a loan, it's going to be on a blockchain. When new debt has to be issued, it's going to be on a blockchain. And the thing is that's what they've chose to tackle as their main subject. And that's a huge thing, because then you have BlackRock's build. It's like build but biddle, kind of like a goofy little name for it. But it's basically doing tokenized treasuries, and I have this funny feeling that what's going to happen is once they tokenize treasuries, they're going to start tokenizing. Stocks. Then it's going to be tokenized mortgages, tokenized collateralized debt. It's all going to end up on a blockchain, and it's looking like ONDO might be that blockchain. Very, very likely. And at under $1 USDT, I have no reason not to believe that this coin won't hit $5 or $10 in its life cycle, which is 5 to 10x. It's a great return. Even its previous all-time high was $2.14, which is quite impressive. And as you can see here, they already moved 95 million to BlackRock's tokenized fund for instant settlements for T-bills. And T-bills aren't a small thing. Treasury bills are basically instant liquidity, meaning that when the companies or governments trade T-bills, it's basically instant liquidity at a low interest rate, and it's basically just to fund the day-to-day operations of everything. And the fact that they're like 95 million, very small, very, very small in terms of what liquidity is, because the global market's like 400 or 500 trillion dollars of like bonds and treasuries, right? So 95 million is small. It's not even a drop in the bucket. It's like if a drop got split in three, but it shows that the product works. And if the product works and they have big people behind it, it's only a matter of time before the product gets filled and the bucket is full. That's ONDO. We'll definitely cover it full scale in another video, but I'm trying to give you guys a good top 10 list now to look out for, as well as answer questions for altcoins that you guys have been asking about. Next one is Sui. Sui is very interesting because Sui functions a lot like Solana, but it is newer, it has more room to grow, it doesn't have network outages, which is what a lot of people are kind of scared about with Solana. And one of the reasons why I don't like Solana is because it's become more of a casino than it is like a proper blockchain. So everyone talks about network growth of Solana, and they always put it as a metric of like, oh, look how much TVL is locked in Solana, but it's actually kind of a gamified system. And the reason I don't like Solana for that reason is because you look at all the meme coins that created all of the TVL, total value lock on Solana, and you notice that all these meme coins are fucking dead now. Meaning that the only reason there's so much value locked in Solana is because there's so much illiquid meme coins and NFTs that will never be sold, that now that money has just been trapped in their system. And yes, that's good in the sense where it's like, oh, you've trapped money in the system, but it's also bad because that's liquidity that can't be accessed. So it's like a double-edged sword. It looks great in terms of paper value. You're like, wow, look at all these numbers. But the thing is none of those numbers are liquid. So it goes to show just how far advanced Ethereum is still compared to Solana, and I don't see Solana flipping ETH. I might not necessarily think Ethereum is the best project right now, but I think that Solana will not be the one to flip it either. I think ETH has so much network value in terms of not just NFTs, but just stable coins, this, DeFi protocols. Like there's too much built that's actually used. Whereas Solana is mostly just the Phantom wallet, which is probably the best thing it has, and then a bunch of meme coins that are liquid and never moving. Why is this important for Sui? Because Sui is one of the larger competitors to Solana, and it's filing for an ETF. And the ETF, what makes it so interesting with Sui is that if it does successfully garner this institutional adoption and ETF launch, it's going to more or less legitimize it as more than just a competitor to Solana and Ethereum. It's going to more or less make it legit. Then people are going to want to put market cap into it because it's going to be a legitimate project. And one of the coolest things that Sui did is they actually formed a partnership with Pokemon. So there's a potential that Pokemon actually gets built on Sui, which is super funny. And considering how much money goes into Pokemon cards and trading and all this interest in the product of Pokemon itself, that by itself is bullish for Sui, which I find hilarious. You know, they also have their own DeFi protocols and partnerships like any other crypto, but those are the main key points that I wanted to mention with Sui. And one last little thing here is Trump's world liberty finance plans. So World Liberty Finance is basically Trump's, I want to say like a crypto hedge fund type of thing, where they're putting a basket together of all American made crypto projects, and they're going to be really pushing for those projects to be the future of finance. People could say and look at it and be like, oh, well, Trump's behind it, it can't be good, and whatever. Let's just separate the politics from the reality. The reality is that if World Liberty Finance, which has got it's got at least Trump's presidency to prove itself, that's a lot of room for growth for all American projects. And if American projects are subject to 0% capital gains, meaning the world's largest economy trading American cryptos at 0% capital gains, that's inevitable to make a really bullish case for SUI and every other American product on the list. Definitely worth keeping an eye on it. And as you'll notice here in that whole thing, the macro strategy fund, right? You'll notice that SUI, Bitcoin, Ether, USDC, not USDT, but I think that Tether will inevitably be there. You got Chainlink, which is going to be the next thing I'm going to talk. And look, you even see ONDO here. XRP is also on that list, by the way, which is going to be in this video as well. So that's my 2 cents on SUI. I just want to move over to Chainlink. Chainlink's a big winner in the sense where it is making great partnerships, great leaps. It's still partnered with Swift, a lot of potential for it. Definitely keep an eye on Chainlink. In terms of news, other than all the partnerships that it's formed with SUI, ONDO, and all these other magnets, these giants, Chainlink is still just doing its thing. So I'm not going to go super deep into it in this video, but I did want to mention that it's still on our list. We're still holding it, and we're still bullish on it. So that's my 2 cents on Chainlink. The next one that I wanted to mention, this one's been through the ringer a bit. It's called Ankr. We've mentioned it previously on our channel. And I'm not going to more or less go too deep into it. I'll do it in another video. But what I wanted to mention about Ankr is that there's not a lot of volume on it. It's kind of going through the ringer in terms of getting hype and adoption. But the project still had a good foundation in terms of its building aggregated staking, meaning that like if you want to stake ETH, you need 32 ETH, but you could do it on Ankr in a pooled system and stake your 5 ETH, for example. So it makes it more achievable for people to stake and get involved with protocols. Plus, they want to simplify. The process of staking, which isn't a bad use case. And the last thing they're doing is they're competing with like Amazon Web Services to create infrastructure for all these staking services and protocols. Now, will it be massive? I don't know. I can't really tell you if it'll be massive because it's on my list of the risky projects, one of the red ones, you know. But I still have it. I still believe that it could at least go back to all-time highs, which is 8 cents. But I would probably be realistic and set a sell target at 4 or 5 cents just to rotate it into healthier capital that might move faster. Keep a small bag on the side. That's how I would approach it. Obviously, it's not financial advice. But I did want to mention that Ankr is still on the list of projects that we're watching. But if you haven't bought Ankr yet, I wouldn't necessarily jump into it unless you see volume start to jump back into the project. Because right now its volume is, it's like what, $1 million globally. It's like 50 to 100K on KuCoin on any given day, which is literally zero trading volume. It's just enough trading volume so it doesn't get delisted. Not super bullish short term, maybe long term it has more potential. Last one for this video is XRP. Now, I had to talk about XRP because it's been on everyone's list and I genuinely do see a future for it now that it's officially won its lawsuit with the SEC. And especially with the SEC becoming more crypto friendly, I just see more potential for it to run. But I see some ridiculous price targets where people are like $1,000 XRP. And I'm like, are you nuts? With the circulating supply of XRP, even if you downloaded the whole world's economy into XRP, I still don't think it would be $1,000. It would probably be like 900, you know? So it's like your estimation of $1,000 XRP, the entire world would have to just be XRP and nothing else. $0, zero this, no Bitcoin, nothing, all valued in XRP. And do you really think that's likely? I don't personally, countries can't even agree what day to meet on. You think they're going to agree to have one currency? Not happening. Not happening. Unless fucking all the stars align, which is just not going to happen. But it's at $2.30. I see it going to $5. That's still 2x your money. That's still a potential for something. If it goes to $10, kudos, congratulations. For anyone who proves me wrong and it grows more than $5 or $10, good for you. I'm happy that you won, but I just don't see it going past that. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't hold it. Now, for me, anything under $2.50 is a good buy range, and anything above $3.50 to $5 is a great sell range. So even if you just take it from a trading perspective, there's so much volume in XRP that it's worth it even just to buy under this range and sell over that range and just keep doing that and make the extra money. But if you're not a seller, you're not a trader and you don't want to do that, just buy a little bag of it and be, I guess, comfortable with the fact that it's a pretty stable project that people kind of trust. But I will give you guys one warning about it. It won its SEC lawsuit, and there's all this good news coming around it. There's global adoption, there's partnerships, great. But they have a lot of tokens being unlocked by the team and the foundation that could be dumped on the market at any time. And that's something that was always an issue with XRP. One of the reasons why I don't fully trust it to just hold it blindly is that they have a tendency of unlocking 1 billion tokens and then just dumping them. And they've done it multiple times. That's how they ended up in a lawsuit, because they did that. Now, from the price of when the lawsuit started to now, you're up if you bought those dumped tokens. But the thing is that $5 or $10, if you're rushing to buy XRP, you might not be up when they dump those billions of tokens. That's more or less going to wrap up this video. And I hope that the information in it answered a lot of questions, especially for the people that are asking about other projects that we used to follow and ones that we do follow right now. It's more or less just to give you like a up to speed idea of where we're at with these projects, and then we'll do like a full-length video on each project in the future to really tell you about the news and developments regarding them. So once again, if you stayed to the end of the video, thank you so much for your viewership. We really appreciate you, and we're happy to be back delivering you guys news and content. Take care.